Assalamualaikum and very good morning. I'm Aisyah Syahirah as the third presenter, and now I'll proceed about the designing and implementing effective group work. In this part, we learn some general strategies for avoiding the pitfall of the group work. Here, we're gonna focus on these 4 points, which are: first, decide on the type of the group to use; second, decide on the size of the group; third, decide on the group composition; and the last one is structure cooperative tasks for positive interdependence. So let's go through to each point. Okay, first is decide on the type of the group to use. Students can work in a variety of ways. According to the Stoldowski, he has identified 5 different types of group work, which are helping permitted, helping obligatory, peer tutoring, cooperative, and completely cooperative. Okay, for your information, the first 3 types of group, which are helping permitted, helping obligatory, and peer tutoring, are the group which can be considered as a collaborative seat work. This is because each of them involve students assisting the one another on individual assignment. Okay, now let's see the first group, which is helping permitted group. In helping permitted group, students are allowed to assist one another to individual assignment. Besides, individuals work on their own tasks and they are evaluated as individual. And lastly, they are allowed but not required to help one another. Next is helping obligatory group. In this group, it differs only in that students are expected to help one another and students offer mutual assistance. Okay, third is peer tutoring group. A more skillful peer assists a less skillful peer. It is in a relationship between the students are not equal, which is an expert is paired with a student who needs help. Okay, so that the assistance flow in only one direction. Also, peer tutoring is particularly useful way to meet the need of students with disabilities. Okay, next is simple cooperative group. In this group, students share a common goal or end. Besides, some division of responsibility can occur and tasks are carried out independently, but everyone's assignment has to be coordinated at the end to produce the final joint product. Okay, lastly is the more complex is a completely cooperative group. Not only do students in it share a common goal or end, but also there is a little or no division of labor. Okay, and all groups members work together to create the group product. Okay, keeping the 5 group in mind so that it is easier for you to differentiate each group. Different types of group are suitable for different types of activities and they are required different types of skill. In helping situation, students are ultimately responsible for completing the individual tasks. They need to know how to ask for help, how to explain and demonstrate it, and how to provide support and encouragement. As we can see in the table, from the 5 types of group, there needs skill in order to make the group work more systematic. For the first 3 groups, which are helping permitted, helping obligatory, and peer tutoring, the skill required are ask for help, explain, and provide support and encouragement. They differ in activity example, which are for helping permitted and helping obligatory is creating clay sculptures, while peer tutoring is having a tutor help a tutee to complete a set of problems. Next, for cooperative group, skill required are divide group tasks into individual tasks and coordinate individual efforts to produce final group product. So, activity example is taking a survey. Lastly, for the completely cooperative group, the skill required are take turns, listen to one another, coordinate efforts, share material, collaborate on a single task, solve conflict, and achieve consensus. Okay, so the example of the activity for this group is the determining a political party affiliation. Next. Next is decide on the size of the group. The size of the group used depends on the task you assign. For example, pairs are appropriate when foreign language students are preparing a dialogue to role play. Next is group of two maximize students' opportunity to participate and are easier for teacher to manage. Besides, teachers of younger students often prefer pairs over larger group that require more elaborate social skill. Furthermore, larger group is suitable when the task is ambitious. Next is group of three are still relatively easy to manage. Okay, but teacher need to make sure that two students don't form a coalition, leaving the third isolated and excluded. Next, according to the Cohen, educators recommend cooperative group of 4 or 5. And the last one, group of 6 is usually the upper limit. Okay, keep in mind that as group size increase, the resource pools also increase. In the other word, there are more head to think about the task and more hands to share the work. It is also true, however, the larger the group, the more difficult it is to develop a plan of action, allocate terms of speaking, share material, and reach consensus. Okay, consensus means that general agreement. Okay, in addition to deciding on the type and size of the group, teacher must think carefully about the group composition. First, group work can provide opportunities for students to develop relationship with those who are different from themselves. For this reason, teachers are advised to form groups that are heterogeneous with respect to gender, ethnicity, race, linguistic background, social skill, and ableness. Okay, on the other hand, teachers need to be sensitive to the fact that trying to achieve heterogeneity which can burden to students who must be separated from those with whom they feel most comfortable. Okay, let's move to the first example of aspect in deciding the group composition, which is race. Okay, the research is from Ben Rubin in 2003 at the Urban High School. So here is the situation. The teachers were committed to use group work so that the students could learn about one another, appreciate differences, and develop the ability to work with others. However, because of African American is a racial minority, this led to one black kid in each group. Thus, when two African American students want to be placed in the same group, their teacher said no. In your opinion, is it okay if the teacher said no in above situation? No, right? Because the teacher should be more sensitive about the racial issue among their students before divide them in a group. The response from the teacher in the situation is obviously not good because having one African American student in each group usually means that students did not have any close friend in the group. When they don't have close friend in the group, since they are different from others, so this student will not giving full cooperation to their group work due to the less self-confidence. So teacher, please be sensitive about your student first so that the teaching and learning process can run smoothly. Okay, next for the ableness aspect, the teacher needs to consider whether the small group will be heterogeneous, which is different, or homogeneous, which is same with respect to achievement level. Thus, preparing students for group work by modeling productive helping interaction is extremely important. So, the advantage of the heterogeneous group is provide more opportunities for asking questions and receiving explanation. Note that for the cons of this group is heterogeneous group does not guarantee that students will actually engage in group members' behavior. Okay, another variable that teachers need to consider when deciding on group composition is social skill and personalities. So actually, group work better when students' personalities and social skill are considered. Some students have difficulty working with others because they might be usually volatile or angry or bossy. And some students have usual leadership abilities. They usually adapt at resolving conflict, and alert to injustice and help to ensure that everyone in the group has a chance to participate. Hence, when forming group, it generally makes sense to disperse students like these two, so that each group have benefit of their talents. So there are 3 techniques in deciding group composition. First, teacher write each student name on a note card, information about achievement and interpersonal relationship. Besides, teacher ranks students in terms of achievement level and assign a top ranked students and bottom ranked student to each of the group. But please remember that teachers should try to avoid extreme in this technique. And the last one is the control randomness. For example of the control randomness is teacher decide the group of students randomly by placing them in same color group or same number group or maybe same cartoon character. This should be fun technique since students need to move around to find for their group members. Okay, for certain types of tasks such as long-term assignment, it is good to allow students to form their own group since the task is require work to be done at home, so it's just too difficult for students to get together with people other than their friends outside of the school. Okay, so the last part from me is structure cooperative tasks for positive interdependence. You as a teacher, if you want to ensure that students cooperate on a task, you have to create a situation in which students perceive that they need one another to succeed, and this is called positive interdependence. So there are 7 strategies for promoting positive interdependence. First, according to Johnson, Hollenbeck, and Roy, share material. Share material is unlikely to ensure meaningful interaction. Next is create a group goal. Third, jigsaw. Jigsaw is one of the earliest cooperative learning method. From jigsaw, students tend to learn the section they were assigned, but were less inclined to learn the material their peers presented. Besides, you can also foster interdependence by creating rich, complex tasks that require multiple abilities. Teachers need to convince their students that every member of the group is good at some of the skill and no member of the group is not good at all. By doing this, teacher can reduce the difference in participation between high and low status of students. Besides, this allows to enable those who are often left out to contribute. Next is depend on one another for information. For example, in a group lab report, each students are responsible for collecting the data, then they need each other to construct the graph based on everyone's result. Besides, give a group grade or group reward. This is such a practical clearly increase the pressure on the group member to make sure that everyone's work is complete and well done. Okay, the last strategy is assign different roles. This is good because it sends the message to students that each of them has something to offer, and this can lay the group work the equity. That's all from my part. Thank you.
Get help! Please! My brother's dying! Get help! Help him!
Oh, classic.
Still hate it? It's humiliating.
No, not for me.
Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi, I'm Syahirah binti Mak Nizam as a last presenter in this group presentation. So this is the last topic, but I will continue from the Aisyah part, which is in designing and implementing effective group work. So actually there are 8 main points, so I will proceed with the 4 points more. And the 5th point is to ensure individual accountability. The 6th point is to teach students to cooperate. And 7 is monitor learning, involvement and cooperative behavior. And the last point is to think about what to do when a student doesn't want to join a group. So if you want to know, let me start with the next slide. Okay, the 5th point, which is to ensure individual accountability. So what it is the meaning of the individual accountability? Okay, individual accountability is the second essential feature of the cooperative learning, and it is one that teachers most often neglect. So this is the important part, which is the teacher should not to take note about this thing. Not really understand, right? Okay, I will explain to you in my words. Okay, individual accountability. So as you know that, in the group, we have a group working, right? So there is sometimes, even in a group, there is sometimes the person doesn't understand, even though there are 5 people in a group, but maybe one of the students are not really understand what they learn today, what they learn that day. So how to ensure this individual accountability even though they are in a group? So how the teacher want to identify their individual accountability even though they still in a grouping? So the first thing I come out here. Okay, the teacher can require students to take individual tests on the material and receive individual grades, even though they are in the grouping working, but the teacher can still proceed this assessment to know whether they understand or not what the lesson learned in that day. And the second is teacher can have each student complete an identifiable part of the total group project. And the third is teacher can call on 1 or 2 students from each group to answer a question, explain the group's reasoning, or provide a demonstration. So from this, the teacher can identify whether the student is really understand or not. Okay? So let's go for the example. What happened to teacher Sandy? Okay, here the teacher Sandy, I will explain to you about teacher Sandy, how she conduct her student. So in one morning in May, we watched Sandy explain the student were going to be working on understanding the idea of equilibrium. So today, teacher Sandy will explain to students about the ideas of equilibrium. So what Sandy do? Okay, teacher Sandy divided the class into groups of 3, explained the task, and reminded students that they needed to work together to discover the operative principle. So from here, the teacher Sandy reminded the student what they need to do in order to work together. And before she allowed them to begin work, she stressed that a group should not consider itself through until all group members understood, because everyone would eventually be taking an individual quiz. So from this, teacher Sandy stressed her student that everyone in the group must to understand what the topic they have learned, because they will be taking an individual quiz. So in other words, Sandy made it very clear that every student would be accountable for explaining the process of equilibrium. We go for the next point, which is the 6th point, is to teach students to cooperate. Okay, in this point, as a classroom teacher, it is our responsibility to teach students to work together, right? So this is not a simple process. Students do not learn to cooperate in one 45-minute lesson. So this is very take time. Indeed, we can think about the process in terms of 3 stages. So there are 3 stages, which is the first stages is value cooperation. Second stages is developing group skills. The third stage is evaluation. So let's go through one by one. Okay, we will go for the first stage, which is value cooperation. Okay, before students can work together productively, the student must to understand the value of cooperation. So what is the value of cooperation? So here, I provide you with an example. And if you don't understand, I will explain to you more by a storytelling. Okay? Okay, the example is, in the lab session, the students need to carry out the experiment without procedure provided. And the task given need to proceed by individual. If the student success, so they will get 5 extra points as a reward. So, do you not understand? Okay, I will tell to you a story, but I didn't state here. Okay, one day, I tell the kids that they are to solve a particular chemical problem, okay? They need to solve a particular chemical problem. And they should go to the lab tables and get started. But they look at me as if I'm a crazy. They say, but Miss Syahirah, you didn't tell us what procedure to use. I tell to them that I forgot to write out the procedure for them. I say, let's see if you can come up with the procedure. If you can come up with the procedure, I will give you 5 extra marks if you can. And they all start out working alone without any grouping. They all start out working alone. They want those 5 points for themselves. You can see that, right? But as the period goes on, they begin to work in groups. Why? Why they start to begin work in group? Because they realize that they need each other, that they can really help one another, and they don't care about the points anymore. At the end of the period, I say to them, let's talk about what happened here. Why did you start out by yourself? They tell me I wanted the 5 points, but I had to ask for help because I did not know enough. We'll talk about how helpful it is to work together when you are learning something new and how the points doesn't matter. So as you can see here, based on what I story to you, the student will started to realize that working in group is really important and helpful in order to finding out a new ideas. Okay, and then for the value cooperation also, we have a second step, which is it is often helpful if we have engaged them in a non-academic activity designed to build a team identity and to foster a sense of the group cohesion. For an example, I think most of us already know about this. For example, is a create banner or poster, or create a group name and logo. So this situation also can be relate when have association activities such as camping, leadership camp, and also the others. Actually in this camp also they use this step in a small group. So based on this activity, by creating the banner or the poster, create a group name and logo, also can build the value of cooperation among the group members. Okay, next we will go for the second stage, which is the group skills training. So what we need to do in a group skills training? Okay, in a group skills training, the first thing is we need to introducing simple norms for group work, which is it can give the students helpful guidelines for what is expected of them. Okay, so how we want the student to apply this skill? Okay, let me see here. Okay, how the student want to apply the skill is by asking the peers for the assistance. Second, help one another, explain the material to other students, check that they understand, provide support, and also listen to your peers. Okay, and then it's and then the second is by explaining to the student that they will be learning a skill necessary for working in groups, such as using a T chart. Okay, using a T chart, which is you list the skill and then with the class and record the ideas what the skill would look like and what it would sound like. And the T chart is a further encouraging participation. Okay, and the last step is the teacher need to provide opportunities for the students to practice the skill and to receive feedback. Okay, so what is the example for this point, which is such as a role play. So you might have the students role play, pair the skill with a familiar academic task so that the student can focus their attention on using the social skill, or have the student engage in exercises designed to teach particular skills. So without we realize that actually role play give the opportunities to student to apply the skill and to improve their skill, whether in a soft skill and also the other skill. The last stages, which is the evaluation. So in this evaluation, to learn from their experiences, the student need the chances to discuss what happened and to discuss and to evaluate how successful they were in working together. This is especially important when the norms for group work are first being established. So how we want to proceed with this evaluation is after individual groups have talked about the experiences, maybe you might want to have them report to the whole class what they have done during the session. Okay, such as we encourage the groups to share and compare their experiences by asking, did your group have a similar problem? Or how many groups agree with the way they solve their problem? Or what do you recommend it? So from this, the student will notice and learn where their strength and weakness, the contribution, and what areas they need to improve. So for the 7th point, which is monitor learning involvement and cooperative behavior. Okay, in generally, teacher intervention were beneficial to the group, which is the student were more likely to be on task after an intervention from the teacher than before, and were more likely to recognize their errors, develop new ideas, and also explain ideas to one another. And besides that also, the teacher also can build in the progress checkpoints. Okay, which means the teacher can ask the student to report on what they had accomplished and what problems they were having. Okay, and it also similar with by divide the large assignments into components that are due every few days, and this is allow the teacher to keep track of how well groups are functioning. So okay, we go for the last point, which is think about what to do when a student doesn't want to join a group. So teacher, what we need to do when the student doesn't want to join a group? So the first thing is we must to assuming that the group work is meaningful and that student participation is very important. Why I said that student participation is very important? Okay, actually it depends on the student. Why he or she doesn't want to work in the group? Maybe if I assign him to a group in which there is someone who bullies him, or a girl who has just rejected him. So maybe there is another problem why they doesn't want to participate in this grouping work. Maybe they have their own problem. Maybe it's because of the bullies or the student itself being uncooperative, and this is put on the teachers how to work together with their parents and need to figure out how to handle this situation. And the next is teacher need to talk about the need to change group composition on a regular basis so that students then does not feel stuck with people they don't particularly like. Okay. In this situation, the teacher need to announce ahead of time how long the groups will be together. It's actually depending on the activity. If the group can last for, maybe the group can last for the 15 minutes or for 4 or 5 weeks. But if in any case, the student know the group is temporary, and this will help them to accept what is perhaps an unappealing situation. Okay, next, which is the teachers continually emphasize the importance of learning to work with many different types of people. Why? This is very important of learning to work with many different types of people. As you know, when we in a group, we will we will grouping with the other people. Sometimes maybe we didn't even know, we will even know who is our friend. So it maybe come from the different types of people. And actually what the teacher need to emphasize here is sometimes it's a lot easier just to allow the student not to join a group, but a part of education is developing the social skills. We need the teacher want to highlight here is about the social skills. It's very important because the part of the education is developing the social skills needed to work with a variety of people, such as when we go for working someday in the future, maybe we have a job, and we also must face with the different type of people, right? So the teacher need to stress that these are essential skills, not just for schools but also for our life. And the last point is allow the students to optional out of a group activity if their reasoning was valid and if the activity did not require their participation. So the teacher also can give a flexible the teacher need to flexible also, because there are sometimes students just feel like working alone. Maybe they had a bad day, or there's a problem at home, or they also think that they had get more done working by individually. So if in these cases like this, we cannot forcing them. So we cannot forcing them to work in a group because maybe it can seems counterproductive. So as a conclusion, by this group is this example illustrate the need for teachers to acquire an understanding of the intricacies of group work in general and cooperative learning in particular. We hope that this chapter has sensitized us to some of the problems that can arise and has provided some strategies for minimizing this problem. So that's all from us. Thank you.
That's not a hug. I'm just grabbing the door for you. We're not there yet.